Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Kay Stewart from the Feed Real Institute. I'm very excited to be here today. We have a very special guest, Elizabeth Ann Johnson, who wrote an amazing book, Know Your Dog's True Nature. I have a copy of it right here. I had so much fun reading this book. I'm going to let Elizabeth introduce herself more, but for those of you, as you join us, I would love for you to, again, I'll show the book later and we'll give you a lot of links that Elizabeth has shared with me. And we will answer any questions if you have questions throughout, which I think you will, because this is just such a fun topic. And so, Elizabeth, if you will introduce yourself, I mean, you're an animal healer, you've been on the TEDx talks, all these exciting things. I'd love for you to just give us a rundown and how you got started in this.
Yeah, thank you, Kate, and thanks for having me. It's a delight to be here. Yeah, so I've been treating animals, doing healing work of all sorts for over 35 years. I started out a long time ago as a vet tech. And then wanted to bring some of the holistic world into it. And so at the time we were doing a lot of holistic work for humans. And so probably a handful of us in the US, maybe 5 or 6 of us, decided at different times in different places that we were going to integrate that into the animal world. And so that's kind of how I started. And it's been a wonderful journey of, tens of thousands of animals and tens of thousands of people that are attached to the animals, and and it's just been really great. And I got into 5-element theory in traditional Chinese medicine, and was fascinated by it. It's a very nature-based modality, and to me that was perfect because I grew up in a nature-based family with my father being very into nature, and pick up that baby bird and hold it near your heart and tell it you love it and it'll fly away, and things did. And so that really launched me off, being in nature, understanding nature, and wanting to bring nature back into both us, because we are nature, and the animals because they are nature. So, we're not separate from that. So the 5-element theory is all about nature. It has a whole huge, massive healing structure to it. But what I did for the book was I plucked out the personality part. Because I really felt like if we could understand our dog's element archetype, which is their personality, we could have a better relationship with our dogs, and we could get all these missing links that we go, gosh, I wonder why they do that. What is that? And why is this dog this way? And my other dog's just totally different and has different needs and wants and all of that. So it was really fascinating. And so what I did was I worked with it in the field for years and years and years and integrated it with all the other modalities I was doing. And I would find with my clients, I'd tell them what element I thought their horse or their dog or even their cat was, or sometimes it was a goat or a potbelly pig. You can type just about anything. And they would think about it, I think, and then they would go home, and then they'd come back for maybe their second appointment or their third appointment with me, and they would say, gosh, I finally figured out my husband is a wood element, just like my horse. They do
love that.
things, and I thought, oh my gosh, I felt like I was teaming up with the animals to help make the world a better place, make marriages better, make some people, it was their coworker, like that person drives me crazy, and now I get it, It was just, now I get it always. And I thought, someday I'm going to write that book. And many of my clients said, when are you going to write that book? 30 years went by, and I finally wrote the book. And so it just really feels like, and we did include humans in the book. So
Yes.
the second part of the book, second half, excuse me, of the book is got, you can find your own human element.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to dovetail the two together to find out, how do we get along? What are our similar needs and wants, and what are our very
Mm-hmm.
different needs and wants, and how can that make the relationship better? That was really the thing. It's all about relationship, and just bringing that out into the world. Because if you can sit next to your Aunt Mary, who drove you crazy your entire life, and understand her now, you can feel better within yourself, and you'll feel
Yes.
better about her. All the world's vibrations will get better.
I love that.
Like my big dream. So
Yeah, I love that part of the book, that I could then go, I took the test for her, and then I took the test for me, and, saw that we were, I told you at the beginning that my dog ended up being fire and then earth as second, and I'm earth and then fire as second. And so to see how we complement each other has been really, really fun. And I learned why she does all the funny things that she does, and I just love it. One of the things I hear people always telling me is that their dog is stubborn. And I think this can really take that language out, because it's not that they're stubborn, it's that you don't know what they're asking for or why they're doing it. And this really helped, at least me.
Yeah, where their innate focus wants to go.
Exactly.
Isn't it beautiful when we can learn that about our animals and anyone?
Yes.
It just really helps smooth everything over. And I think at this time in the world, we need as much smoothing over as we can, and settling of the heart and the mind. So
Yes, and understanding each other, because everybody is just so caught up in themselves, and I think people are so worried that their dog reflects themselves. So if their dog's acting up, or and so if you know how to work with your dog and understand them, you're not going to have that anxiety, I think. So I would love for you to go through the 5 elements,
okay.
and just briefly touch on them, and give people a teaser as to what they're going to see. Again, this is the book that she has put out, and I just loved it. It was so much fun to read. So fun to read about yourself, your dog, and then as you're looking, like, oh, my daughter's dog, that's why she does that, like all the different dogs and animals. And I didn't think of it in terms of other animals. I'll have to think about that with like my other daughter's cats and stuff. Right?
Yeah. So I always say cats are cats, and cats, you need a PhD in 5 element most of the time.
Yeah.
They can be really tricky because they're sort of shapeshifters, and they
Mm-hmm.
what they want, and check in and out of this world, I think. And so
Yes, I think shapeshifters is a good term for them.
yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, well, I'll wander through them. So
Okay.
right now we're in springtime, and there is a seasonal aspect to this. The
Okay.
Chinese thought of everything, and the season of spring is a wood element. And so we're going to kind of talk about dogs, but you can relate this to your horses. Some of you can relate it to your cats, and certainly probably humans. So the wood element is like an army sergeant. It's just strong and determined and full of potential. And when you think about springtime, and that's what we're going to do, we're going to relate all this to nature. That helps you remember what they're all about. So when you think about springtime, everything's popping up out of the ground. All the buds on the trees are going, wee, and growing so fast. I mean, I have had to cut my lawn like 4 times in the last 2 weeks, just because it's growing so fast here. We had a lot of rain in the Pacific Northwest this year. And so there's all this potential in the air, and a wood dog or horse is extremely determined. Like they love challenges. They always want to learn more. They're a very fast learner. They often make good service dogs in regards to military dogs. They're very brave, and they just charge into anything that needs to be done. Police dogs, they tend to be really good athletes because they're very aware of their body and their body space. Their sense organ is their sight. So as an athlete, or as a protective dog or anything, you need really good sight. And so often have really good sight when they're balanced. If they're imbalanced in their wood element, they might have not so good sight. There might be something wrong there. So Chinese medicine is all about balance and imbalance. And we often look to find the imbalance to create the balance. So it always needs to be balanced. So the wood element is just this dynamic being, and they will become a leader if they don't have one. So a handler, the person, the owner, whatever we want to call it, I'm going to call it the handler for the wood element. They need to be a leader in themselves. As a matter of fact, I just wrote a blog article about this for Happy Healthy Dogs. If anybody wants to go to that magazine, it's an online magazine, Happy Healthy Dogs. They can read about it. And what really happens with these dogs is they get misunderstood. The movement is their medicine. They need to move. So spring, growing. Well, there's all kinds of movement in that growth, energy change and energy exchange. And so they need that, and they need a solid handler to direct all that energy. So that's a bit about the wood element. And they're wonderful dogs. They're amazing. I wouldn't say they're for a 78-year-old man that's going to sit on the couch, because you need to move. That is their main medicine. One more thing about them is really important to know about how the dog reacts under stress, because that has a lot to do with their element. So wood dogs under stress have what we would call as humans, if we were under stress and we were a primary wood element, we would call it anger. And with a dog doesn't get angry, but they get aggression, they get impatience, they get frustration. And so those are all byproducts of anger. And so we want to really be clear when our wood element is getting that way, that we know that there's an imbalance. Some of the dogs that are overprotective, that's another piece of imbalance, way overprotective. They're locked in the house a lot more than they should be. They want to be outside, they want to be moving, exercising, competing, whatever it is. And then someone comes to the door, and that dog jumps up on the door and is, and it's not fear aggression, it's aggression. And so that's one thing that we always want to know, and why we want to step up and be that good handler. And I'm going to take a moment and say, we all have 5 elements, and it's just a matter of percentages. So your primary element is where you're going to find that main stressor and the main needs and wants and supports for the animal. The secondary element will show itself and come in and out, and especially in the season of that element. And the tertiary sometimes, and the other 2 kind of hang in the background, and they'll pop up here and there. But you're working with that primary element. So next we roll into summertime. That's the fire element. And the fire dogs are just amazing. They have what I call charismatic magnetism. I mean, they're like a magnet for people, for other dogs. They love being adored. They just want to they want everyone to love them. So I always say they're like, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? They're like a diva. That's what we call them. They're party animals. They're super social. everybody gravitates to them. People remember them for years. I've had a couple of my dogs, and people would say, "Oh, I kind of miss Louie. Do you miss Louie?" Or say, 10 years or 15 years later, they still
Wow.
remember this dog. And when you think about fire in nature, many moons ago, it taught us that we could get warm. It taught us how not to die from tons of bacterium in our food, which we didn't even know that was happening, but we were dying. And when we cooked our food, we didn't die. And so it's a really powerful force of life and an adjunct to our life. And it feels like these animals are that way. They really bring a lot of light. They bring a lot of warmth and happiness and joy. Their emotion is joy, period. And they're just wonderful little beings. They do tend towards panic attacks, basically. And what we call it in Chinese medicine is a disturbance of the shen. And the shen is the spirit and the mind. It lives in the heart. And the heart is one of their main organs when we work with the medical aspect of Chinese medicine. So I feel like their heart is their sense organ, but it's actually not. Their sense organ is their tongue. And so they lick people a lot. I've had so many humans call me through the years that I didn't even know and say, "Someone told me to call you. My dog's licking me all the time. I don't have a lotion on. I don't have this. I don't have that. I wash my hands after I do food. They're constantly licking me or they're licking themselves, and that can be a process because these dogs are really prone to allergies because heat. Summer is our hottest time. And heat, and when you feed fire more heat, what happens? Fire gets big, right? And so they get a lot of allergy responses, and they start licking themselves. They also bark a lot. They're prone to having kind of a high-pitched, sort of a lot of barking. Not everyone does, but when they're imbalanced and they want attention, they're going to talk in a very vibrant way. So, yeah. So, yeah.
I'd love to interject here. So, I told you like I have this Aussie doodle that is definitely a fire dog, and I went through the quiz, and she definitely was. Wants everybody to say hi to her. And what's so funny is I have two sisters that don't have dogs. They live quite a ways from me. And if I don't send them pictures every couple of days, they get upset with me because they're like, I just need my Blossom, and it's just so cute to watch them be so excited with her.
Yeah, they are just ambassadors of love, they really are. They're amazing. And I just want to say with the disturbance of the shen, that's sort of their stress reaction. So they have too much fun sometimes. Like they'll be in a dog park and they'll be playing with everybody, and then you see this elevation, and you can just see that they're getting a little panic attack because they're having
I've seen that.
Fun. Yeah. And so
when you were saying that about the vocalization, when she sees, and it's so funny, when she sees other doodles, it's like, those are my people. And her bark gets really high and shrill and happy. And like you said, it's almost like too much. And I have to calm her down and bring her back down.
Yes. And I'm going to show you a point for that. And so it's right here between our eyebrows and between their eyebrows. It's not necessarily between their eyes, but if you just go up and down, you're going to hit it. It's called Yintang. And that point, what happens when we have this disturbance of the shen starts to rise up out of its lovely home in the heart, and it goes up into the mind. And that's when the panic attack starts. It's up here. And so this point actually moves the shen back down in the heart.
I love that.
Yeah. So it's really wonderful. Matter of fact, I was on I've been on a ton of podcasts and things, but I was on one, and the fellow that was my moderator, he had a really bad day. His YouTube channel went down. All these things happened. His computer, he lost all his mailing list. I mean, it was just this really bad day. And here we were trying to do a thing. And I was talking about Yintang. And so he started doing it. And his head went down like this. He was waiting. And he must have rubbed that point for about 10 minutes. And he was so kind and just back to himself after that. It was really interesting because I hadn't really used it on a human. I've only used it on lots of animals. If an animal's stressed and they don't want to touch.
Thinking back in time, though, I used to do that with my babies. When my kids were babies, I would stroke them, just along here and get them out of. It was just intuitive. I had never heard that.
That's exactly right. And when I was studying, I have a similar story. When I was studying Chinese medicine, I thought back to my mom when I would have a bad day at school or something. She would always come over and she'd kiss me right there. And it felt so good. It was a long kiss, and it just was like, oh, okay. And it was all, and she didn't know Chinese medicine. But it was a natural, intuitive place to go for that. It was so beautiful.
That is.
So if you have a fire dog and you have that, just utilize that little point. It's so, and not fast. You have to ground yourself too, and you have to breathe when you're doing this. You can't be 2 helium balloons way up.
Which is hard for me because I'm right up there too. So you have to remember that.
Remember, you're the earth, primary earth. So, so then the next animal is earth, and that is late summertime. And that's kind of our Indian summer, not quite autumn, not quite summer. And those are the kid-loving, people-loving dogs. Kate and I were talking, and I said we were talking about earth and fire, and fire says, "Don't you love me? Don't you love me?" And earth says, "I love you. I love you." And so they're both dogs that attract a lot of attention. That they do it for different reasons. Because the earth is standing there, wagging this tail, going, "Hello, hello, I love you." And you just get so there's a little magnetism there as well. An earth dog, and when he's in the back of my car at the grocery store, there usually is a little crowd of people. I leave about this much for his little head to get out. He's a big lab. There's a crowd of people standing around petting and talking to Wilbur, and so they have their own magnetism. They're wonderful dogs. They're very mellow. They're very gentle. I always say if a burglar came in through the window, they would show him where all the cool stuff is. They just really love everybody, and they're really amazing animals. They can have problems with weight gain. So, and we might talk a little bit about food with that in a few minutes. But their organs are spleen and stomach, and it has a lot to do with their digestive system. And so we want to support them as much as we can with that. And they're very much worriers. So that's their stress responses. They worry. So, an argument in the household, a kid moving away to college, any big change, like especially moving to a new house, all of those get them in a worry mode. And when they get in a worry mode, they get a little obsessive. They get, they need to eat more. They're always asking for food. I think all earth elements have the hunger gene. But it's really bad when they're stressed. So their stress is quiet, but if you're aware of what that stress is, you'll see it and you'll go, okay, I have to back up. This is my wonderful earth dog. He's so kind and gentle, so loving, just wants, all the animals and kids and people around him. And they're a little lazy, so they don't need a ton of exercise or anything. Their needs are really family. And so, and having everybody be happy and pleasant around them. It's really, really very sweet.
That's awesome.
So then we move into the middle, which is autumn. And those dogs are, we call them librarians. A lot of us coined that term for them. They're very, very intelligent. They're animals that don't like sentimentality. They don't like to be touched a lot. Like, they don't want to be petted. They're not the one that jumps up on the couch and curls up in your lap and wants to sit and watch a movie with you. They might go up there, but they'll kind of be like, okay, I'm here. You don't have to pet me or anything, please.
Yep.
And they're that way when you meet them. So if you walk up and you see someone that has a metal dog, and you want to, it's natural for me and most dog people to want to meet the dog too. And those dogs, if you want to meet them, they'll just kind of turn their head. They don't want to really look you eye in eye. They're very interesting. And when you think about metal in nature, it's very inflexible, right? But it's also very purposeful. So metal makes skyscrapers, it builds cars, it makes every little gadget. We have thousands of gadgets, metal in our house, whether it's a window latch or a door handle or on and on and on. And so they're very purposeful animals, and they need a purpose. They want to have a purpose. Their sense organ is their nose. So yes, all dogs have a great nose, and unbelievable, but I really believe that the metal element dogs just have a little bit more molecules of that in their nose that makes them be more aware of things when they're searching. They make great search and rescue dogs, and they're very that purposefulness is so beautiful in them if you just take them as a working partner, and even you can't go out and do search and rescue for 27 hours. Your dog, you can teach your dog nose work. You can give them some kind of thing that feels like you have a job, and make that up. And I have 5 fun play ideas. If you sign up for my newsletter, at the end there'll be a link, and that has play ideas for each element. And for the metal element, that is their play. They're not like going to go out and really chase a ball or anything unless it's really important to them or it's important to you. So they're very interesting little beings. And the water element is the winter element. So that's our last element. We call them the empath or the 4-legged spiritual teacher. They are very mysterious, mystical, deep animals. They often have a sense of fear about something. Visceral fear is their emotional default if they're stressed. And when they have that visceral fear, it's not just like, oh, I don't think I want to go do that. It's grab the leash out of your hands and run down the road kind of. Their hearing is, their sense organ is hearing. And so when they hear a loud noise, fireworks, car backfire, somebody's shooting, all of a sudden your neighbor starts shooting, they get incredibly stressed, and they just want to run. They just want to leave, and they'll jump fences and do all the crazy things. But they're so connected to us, and we all feel the same way when we talk about them, that they're really interested in our evolution. They are all dogs reflect us. We know that, and they do. They know when we feel something. Mirror neurons, whatever you want to call it, but they will reflect back who we are if we know how to listen for that.
Right.
And watch for that. But the water element never turns that off. They are constantly in you, with you, feeling you, wanting you to be the best version of yourself. And they're quirky. They are shapeshifters for sure. So they shapeshift into every element. And when you think about water in nature, look at all the forms water takes. It can
Mm-hmm.
snow, it can be ice, it can be rain, it can be tsunami, it can be a quiet pool, it can be a little drop on the end of a piece of grass.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are really good shapeshifters. They're better than cats, I think,
Wow.
actually, at it. Yeah. And so they will often show the other elements, especially in the season of that element. So
Mm.
especially if you have a young water element. I had one, now she's 3, a little over 3, almost 3.5. And she was shape shifting like crazy growing up. So you know that's just a water element, because that's what they do. They
Huh.
change. And one day she's a wood, and another day she's a metal, and another day she's this fire element way up here. And you know,
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, it's really fascinating. And I'm a water element, so I do the same thing. So when I do
Ah.
a really fun interview like this, like my fire element starts coming out.
Yeah.
Ground myself.
I love
So
that.
so that's all of them, and little short and dirties on the
Yeah.
way. And yeah.
So, as we learn about our dogs and what their primary element is, you and I talked before we went live, we can actually start to look at what food we are offering them, especially seasonally, but just in general. So, I've got a fire dog and she tends to be itchy. And so, you know, and I've known that. So, I limit like chicken and stuff in her diet anyway.
Mhm.
But yeah, can you talk about how we can look at the energetics of food and play with these elements within our dogs? And
Yes,
yeah.
it's really fascinating, and it's actually a little bit complex for, I think, the time we have today,
Sure.
but we can skim it and
Mhm.
get a good feel for it. So starting with the fire element is definitely a hot dog, and
Mhm.
the energetics go from cool, which is the water element, to partial cool to partial hot, which is the wood element. And then we have the earth element and the metal element, which the earth element is pretty neutral, and the autumn
Okay.
element is partial hot, basically warm,
Mhm.
cold. And so when what we want to do is we want to feed the opposite, because remember, we
Right.
need balance. So there's yin and yang that creates that beautiful balance. There is, and we think about deficient and excess in Chinese
Mhm.
medicine. So if we've got an excess of fire in a hot dog, then we need to feed cool foods. And
Mhm.
we would always need to feed cool foods for a hot dog. And that would be the fire. That's the prime. It's like kind of on the,
Mhm.
if it was a clock, it would be at 12 o'clock. That's the fire. Um, so that means we would be giving them like rabbit and turkey,
Mhm.
duck, whitefish, and even some ocean fishes are really
Mhm.
good for those. Those are all cooling foods. There's a lot of different cooling vegetables, like broccoli is fairly cooling. Of course, cucumbers, celery, things like
Mhm.
that. Some of them, some dogs will eat them and some won't. If they have a secondary earth element, they'll probably eat the vegetables
Well,
because,
you know, you would think that mine would, but she
yeah,
won't touch the vegetables. I
yeah,
mean, the sweet ones, you know, like cucumbers and tomatoes, that kind of thing. But
I know.
broccoli and leafy greens, it's not touching them.
Mm, yeah. Well, if you can feed that dog, if you continue to feed that dog hot foods like venison, beef, chicken,
Uh-huh.
then you're going to get a extra hot dog. You're going to feed
Mhm.
the fire. The fire is going to get like this, and they're going to be,
Yeah.
in this and
Yeah.
pulling off hair. So on the other end of the spectrum is the water element, and that's the cool element. So we need to feed warm foods to actually we need to feed hot foods and warm foods to the water,
Mhm.
and they do best on venison, chicken, beef. Those are my little water dog. Those are her 3 favorite, and every water dog I've ever had, which is numerous ones, that's was their favorite food, and it kept them the healthiest. If you feed a water dog a cold food, then what happens is the kidneys get stressed, and their organs are kidney and bladder. And these organs control the entire nervous system, the spinal system, the urinary bladder system. And so you can really set them back by giving them cold foods. Like, you know, you can do a little fish here and there, and like sardines are more red meat. So those are a little warmer type of fish. So you just have to kind of pick that out. There's lots of things on the internet about it. We've kind of talked about sharing some of that and really getting it down pat for to give to everyone. It's probably going to be something I'm writing about in one of my magazine articles coming up.
Okay.
And we will probably do a seasonal, you know, an overview on the season.
Sure.
Excuse me, and then we'll do each season will be more specific. So so that's those. And so the ones on the interim, like the wood element, the wood can manage depending on, and this is where it gets a little tricky. If your wood element is really doing well and it doesn't have any tendon, ligament, muscle, liver issues, because or gallbladder issues. Those are the organs with it, and the body parts that are affected with wood. So we can feed warm or cold food to them for different ailments. So that's a little trickier, but it's really not when you see it on paper. It's just, okay, so my wood dog, agility dog, blew a tendon. So I'm going to back off on this, and I'm going to start feeding them this type of meat.
Okay.
It's going to help. Wood dogs love organ meat too. They, you know, with all the movement that they want and they need it for their blood, their blood volume, and they're cleaning their system out. The liver's cleaning the system out, you know, so there's certain ways we can address that as well. The earth dog needs a diet. So that's the standard, because they almost always have a slow metabolism. And I always tell people, especially your old earth dogs, to give them some enzymes and to really cut back on their size of their meals, because they gain weight like really in a day. I just had this happening with Wilbur. I feed raw food, and I was at the end of a big 5-pound raw food thing, and he was having his turkey, and there was a little more than I usually feed him left, and so I gave that to him. And it was the funniest thing, because he was acting so hungry after that. Like, when I give him the right amount, he's not bothering me for more food for at least an hour anyway.
At least an hour.
But if I give him more, he wants more right away. Like, it's really fascinating. He's funny like that. And so you want to be careful, because they're so darn sweet and cute, and they have the best wagging tails, you know, and you just want to, you know, oh, okay, I'll get you a treat. I know you're hungry. And by the time you do that, they're way overweight, and that's really hard on them. So, and that metabolism being slow, the enzymes will help. Other metabolic things you can do to kind of speed that up a little bit, but you have to stick with it all the time. So
makes sense.
Yeah. The metal. Oh, and eggs. I forget to talk too much about eggs, but the water element does really good with eggs. They almost, when you think about water, it's like, it's the birth of everything. And an egg is like the birth of everything, right? And a seed is like everything. So seeds, they like eggs.
Mm.
And a lot of the dogs like eggs. I think eggs are fairly neutral, little bit warming sometimes, but fairly neutral. And it's a nice thing to just crack one and put it in
Mm-hmm.
there, especially if it's an organic, farm bought egg, then they're pretty healthy. And then we've got the metal element, and that's another sort of neutral one that, like the wood element, you can feed for different things going on in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that with everyone, but
Sure.
those are kind of in the spectrum of like hot, cold, hot, cold.
Sure.
And doesn't mean they're warm in the middle. It means that they bounce back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So on a different topic of hot and cold, I've seen posts saying that all dogs should have their food brought up to at least room temperature, if not warmed, that they shouldn't eat it raw or,
right.
like out of the refrigerator. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that your fire dog and your wooden earth dogs do okay with the colder food, temperature wise?
I think that some of the warm dogs can eat the colder and not be affected. So like the, probably the wood all the way to the metal to some degree, but I really feel like the right thing to do is to try to bring it somewhat to room temperature. If you don't, I think moisture is important. Moisture in the food is really important for all dogs, but the metal dog is a dry dog. So that one is very important. The water dog is a water dog. So that's really important. So when I have a metal dog or a water dog, I'm always putting water in their food. Raw, and it's, even if there's blood in there, I'm adding some moisture into it. I think that's really good for the fire dog too, because it cools the fire,
Yeah, that's what I found. If I just, even in the winter time, if I just added a little bit of, I don't think like hot, hot out of the tap hot, not, kettle hot, and just took the really coldness off the food, but kept it cool. I found that worked really well for Blossom. But I had my daughter's 2 cats here, and I was feeding them raw, and I put hot water on their raw food. And I noticed right away that they stopped having hairballs. They stopped. I mean, it was really amazing the difference it made. I mean, it was a huge difference just getting them transitioned to raw, but then adding that hot water to their food slowed them down in eating too. And I noticed the female was not coughing up hairballs like she always did. So.
Good. That's amazing. It's so interesting because where my brain goes with that is cats are more closer to the feral nature, the wild that's in all of our animals and us if we allow it. And the cats are they want something that they just caught and warm. And Pretzel's very feral because of her upbringing. I'm sure you read about her in the book. Or her birth, I should say. And so she doesn't like cold things either, and she's a water dog. So she definitely, if she finds a mouse or if a cat, I've had many cats, if they find a mouse that somebody's killed and it left overnight, I always thought it was sensible they didn't eat it, but then I realized that it might be really cold. It's a cold, because oftentimes I've picked them up and had to them. So, and they feel cold to me, and I thought, that's just intelligence, and that's just that close line to that of their own hunting practices. So yeah.
So from the audience, if you have any questions about your specific dog, put them up. This is your chance. We've got about 15 more minutes at most. We go no longer than an hour. And so we'd love to answer any specific questions, and we'll just keep going on and talking about all of this, but let us know if you have anything. And then one of the questions we had come up is, how do you use this system to support older dogs and dogs that have gone through a lot of trauma?
Yeah. That's in my book. There's an old dog chapter that's dear and near to my heart, old dogs. And there's also a rescue chapter. And we didn't embellish on too much on the trauma aspect of it, but I can speak to the fact that I've had 17 rescue dogs in my life, and they've all brought in a piece of trauma with them, a big chunk.
Sure.
And so I think it's really recognizing what that trauma is, how it shows itself, and who the dog is with the elements. So, a water element with trauma is almost always going to show fear. And it's usually that visceral fear. So they're going to be the more cautious animals. They're going to be like, oh, I don't like that human, or I don't like humans, period. That's Pretzel. She has 8 humans now that she likes, but that's taken 3 years to get 8 humans. So yeah, definitely afraid of them. And so I think that if we look at that, we can go around the wheel really quick with that. So a wood element with trauma is going to be a dog that has been limited in its movement, limited in its teaching, its learning, limited in going after challenges, not allowed to do that because they love that, the wood element challenges and meeting the challenge and being the, the competitive. And so when you limit those dogs, when you have one, then the trauma is like, I just want out. I'm mad, upset. And so reversing that reactionary behavior is a little tricky, and it sort of depends on age and how long they've had it. You probably, and what have you done to try to stop it? And, some people, there's big nasty collars, there's shock collars, there's all these things that sort of increase that behavior. So that is one for a really good, gentle, kind, understanding, very experienced trainer to deal with, but meanwhile, as our little 5 element bundle that we have, we can start giving them more movement. We can start giving them challenges, teaching them things, all those needs and wants weren't met early on, then that creates the trauma. And so the whole book is about the needs and wants.
Right. So is it harder, though, to understand which element they're going to be if they've been traumatized? Because is it going to be hard to visualize what's really going on?
It can be. If you really have connections with animals, I think that you can figure it out pretty quick. And the quizzes in the book are invaluable for that. You just start going through. They may be a different dog because they have trauma, but how are they showing their trauma? That's going to tell you the stressor, knowing how they react under stress and what stresses them. That one thing will bring you to their primary element, because a wood element dog doesn't react with a disturbance of the shen or a worrying situation unless they have a really strong secondary element that's pushing in on that. But you're always going to see some form of aggression, impatience, or frustration with them. And frustration is interesting, but it's kind of like they stand there and they're like, come on, could we do something? That's what those dogs are like. And you can see it in their eyes, in their face, in their posture. They just want to grow, it's not about fun. They like fun too, but they're also very purposeful. They're working typically. So and then the fire dog is always going to show those disturbances of the shen, those panic attacks, and you're gonna feel them like being like in a balloon. And in the fire people that I've known, they tend to reach out to others for help. And I think our fire dogs do that too. Like they're like, Mom, I'm over here. I'm panicking, and so you just have to be aware. What does that look like compared to a happy dog, that's having a good time? And posture is different. And learning posture, learning about who they are and what they are, that's invaluable for a relationship, because that's part of their voice. You need to be able to look at them and see what their body is saying as well. And and so on the earth dog, it's going to be again that obsessive worry behavior if they've had trauma. Wilbur had terrible trauma, and he came to me and he was just so worried, and he was spun out, and he has a secondary fire element, so he was in this panicky spin out worry thing. And you can see, like, my husband even could see each sort of emotion he had when we picked him up, he had, mind you, he had just come from all the way from Texas in a Sprinter van with 34 Chihuahuas. So,
oh my goodness. We'd all be stressed.
Yeah. But yeah, so you're just really looking at those stress responses when you do that. The stress response for the metal element is very different, and it's hard to see because those animals they sort of have this framework, this sort of box around them. They don't really want to be touched. They just want to be purposeful. And when you think about the librarians of old, in our era, excuse me, they were like, shh, everything had to be just like, oh, you put that book in the wrong place. That's how these dogs are. And so,
funny.
their stress response is grief oftentimes. Which is hard to see. And they will hide, and they'll get sort of apathetic, and they'll just go hide. And that's part of their recovery nature anyway, to go hide. But they will get into this "I don't trust you anymore" thing. And that's when you've broken trust with these dogs, it's hard to get back as a handler or a partner with them. And so you always want to be really clear. We talk about this in the book. Clear and present with them, and know your stuff before you teach it to them. Because if you do one thing wrong and they kind of know that, then it's like, metal rigidity. So so that's kind of hopefully.
I love that. And how amazing would it be if shelter workers could start to see these elements and have those posted next to the dog and what that meant, and so that people understood what stresses they were going to see, and that they're normal, and you're going to have to work through these. I think with those traumas, I've seen people get rescues out of shelters and can't handle them because they don't understand that. So
Right. There, we're working on that. I went last year to Humane Society Expo. I missed this year, unfortunately. And I had roundtables, and I talked to a lot of people about it. I'm talking to someone else now who is trying to stop the rehoming and the rehoming, which is so hard on these animals. And for me, the ultimate goal of my book is to get this into the hands of the rescue organization. There's some that are interested. It's just hard to integrate. And so it means training staff, which I'm really happy to do. Train the staff. It's not that it's not rocket science. And these people are so empathetic and so connected to the animals. They'll learn it just like that. They see the animals. And then integrating it into the system where we could have on the intake, try to get as much information as you can. Or
and even intakes, of who's adopting the dog. And so for my dog, I went through a small rescue. I found her on Pet Finder, but they had interviewed 15 people before they gave her to me. And so they were very, very deliberate. They knew exactly what she needed. I work from home, and that was a huge thing for them. She's the fire dog. She doesn't like to be alone.
Right.
And so she's alone maybe a couple hours a night when I go up and see my grandkids, but that's it. And she does not like to be alone for very long. And that was one of their criteria. So as I'm doing all this, I'm thinking, that woman really knew what she was doing. She waited and found the right dog for her. And I'm so blessed to have been the lucky one to get her.
That's awesome. I love that. And, they do have some sort of matchmaking stuff, software in different rescues, because I talked with so many different people and software companies. And there's interest out there. There's just not funding, and there's not, all the aspects have to go perfect.
Well, I could talk to you about this for hours, but we're running low on time. And I just so appreciate everything that you are doing. I love the book, and I encourage everyone to get the book and enjoy figuring out your own type and your dog's type, and the people around you. As we're talking, all these things are going through my head. You're talking about that frustrated, I need to do something, and I'm thinking about my 5-year-old grandson who gets like, I just need to move, and so it's so enlightening and so exciting. And like I said, I just love it. So I'm just gonna put this up again so everybody can see it, and we have the link in the comments here so you guys can get it. So much fun. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. I enjoyed our conversation just so much. And any final words or?
No, I just thank you, Kay, for seeking me out and finding me, and putting this together. It really was fun. And I just think that if everyone could kind of see the world through that 5-element lens, I really do think that things would go smoother, and our hearts would be happier, and certainly our animals would be happier. When someone understands you for who you really are, what your needs and wants are, what stresses you out, and how you stress, that's like the perfect marriage to me. And
absolutely.
I think that we can create that. And that was another goal of the book, was just to bring it out as far and wide as we can, so that we can try to make the world a little better place. There's enough stress around. We can kind of do some dusting here and there.
That's right. I love that. Well, again, thank you so much. And everybody that joined us, thank you for joining us. And we'll be back live in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kay. Bye, everyone.